How's it going, everybody? Welcome to our multiclassing combination video where we talk about some of the best combinations for multiclassing in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Josh, what kind of combinations were you thinking of for this video?
Superman and Kryptonite.
That might be a nice combination for Lex Luthor, but D&D 5e?
Orange juice and toothpaste.
Oh boy. Yeah, it's going to be one of those videos.
Ev Bo and Aaron?
See, now that's a really good combination.
The Brothers Tabletop.
Ooh, yeah. I feel like you're really hitting your stride now. How's it going, everybody? I'm Jake from JNJtabletop, and with me, as always, is Joshua Tabletop over here. So yeah, like we said, we're going to be talking about some great combinations for multiclassing, and what kind of things do we actually look for when we're going to be putting together a multiclass, Josh?
For me, I like front-loaded features. So what does that mean? You say, what do you mean front-loaded features? Front-loaded features would be like the fighter. You get your action surge, you get your second wind, you get fighting style, all this stuff really early on.
Okay.
A rogue also gets sneak attack and cunning action, things like that really early on. So it makes it easier to take like a 1 or 2 level dip in a class like that because you're getting so much right away. Even if you only go 1 or 2 levels into it, you're getting a lot.
One of the downsides of multiclassing is that you're taking away from the core class or whatever the primary class is that you're trying to build. So if you're going to dip the toe in the water, it's nice to do it quickly. But the other thing I look for is actually overlapping prime ability scores. So, you know, Ranger Rogue, you have Dexterity, the same spellcasting modifier. Like, that's why a lot of these combinations out there use Charisma, because your Bards, your Warlocks, Sorcerer, Paladin, all of those spellcasting modifiers are the same. So it's not like a hard rule that you have to follow, but it does tend to make things easier. And some really weird ones out there actually are fun that don't seem to make sense.
It's nice to think about your saving throws too. Like if my goal is to make some sort of gish with like a focus on spellcasting and like maybe concentration type things too, I'm going to take a level in something that has proficiency in Constitution saving throws. Like maybe I'll start off at fighter and then I'll move on to something else. That way I would be better at those saving throws, if I need them.
That's a really good point. A lot of spellcasting classes, I think actually the Sorcerer is the only one that's proficient in Constitution, so yeah. It's really nice to be able to have that. And you know, that actually in theory could free up, as a lot of spellcasters take Warcaster as a feat, and this could in theory free that up to maybe focus on something else.
That's also one of the downsides, I would say, to a multi-class character, is depending on what levels you take where, you might not get as many feats or ability scores. So to do something that stops you from taking a feat that you would have taken just gives you more flexibility.
Yeah, and usually a lot of times the strength of a multi-class character is its versatility and flexibility, that it can be very useful and strong in more situations than maybe, you know, a single class character could be. What are some of the common dips that you've noticed that people will do when they multiclass?
Common dips that people go into, like specific classes, I would say Rogue for that cunning action, for that sneak attack. Like I mentioned before, to Fighter for second wind fighting style, action surge. A lot of the time you'll dip into a martial class for just like an extra attack, something like that.
Yeah, another common one would be 1 level of Cleric, because a lot of the Cleric domains, like the Forge domain, Life domain, War, Tempest, some of those, they actually gain proficiency in heavy armor. So if you're looking to just make sure you could have a little better protection, you get the healing Cleric spell list as well, and you could really do some fun stuff just by having that. And if you do Life domain, actually the Disciple of Life makes your healing spells more powerful. So that's a nice thing for there. I also noticed Warlock invocations, because you get to pick 2 of them at level 2, which is nice. And then you have a couple of spell slots that regenerate on a short rest, which is nice. And then I think it's a 3-level dip, so maybe it's not I don't know if you consider that a dip, but the Artillerist Artificer and that Eldritch Cannon, you can weaponize that bonus action no matter where you are. Might be nice for a wizard who tends to not use their bonus action very much, but also to get temporary hit points every round. So
that Eldritch Cannon is, I don't understand how that made it past Unearthed Arcana. So one of my favorite combinations, so it would probably be the Vengeance Paladin Assassin Rogue, or I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be those specific subclasses, but Paladin Rogue. But here's why I say Vengeance Paladin Assassin Rogue. Basically, you go into Paladin to get those sweet, sweet smites, right? You could use your Vow of Enmity to give yourself advantage, right? So if you make that attack, you're going to get a sneak attack. As a Vengeance Paladin, you're going to be using Hunter's Mark. Not necessarily, you don't have to. But for this, use Hunter's Mark. Pop that guy on, make your attack, boom, sneak attack. If you crit as a Paladin Rogue, just decide to add a smite to it, plus a Hunter's Mark on that, and then it's just like you're just rolling even more ridiculous amounts of dice than the Rogue already rolls. I mean,
yeah, and that's why the Assassin Rogue is so attractive here. I mean, this will work for any Rogue, but I think the primary build here is the Rogue. I think you're dipping for a little bit of Paladin for the Vow of Enmity. Really, I think is. Oh man, that's the Silvatuna Mauve. Yeah, you're gonna be dealing out a ton of damage, and anytime you can add healing to your group, even if you're just like that emergency medic, like your cleric goes down or whatever, and you can go over there and pop him back up with Lay on Hands. Yeah, that's a nice combination, and you can kind of have this like Dark Knight Avenger feel to you. I think actually the Vow of Enmity, if I'm not mistaken, was a 4E Avenger feature. Let me know in the comment section. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that.
What would you say is one of your favorite builds? What do you have?
One of my favorites actually would be the Sorcerer Warlock, and this is built, you're primarily a Sorcerer, and you're just going to dip to Warlock to get Eldritch Blast and to have the Agonizing Blast. Invocation lets you have your Charisma modifier on your damage for Eldritch Blast damage rolls. Now, Eldritch Blast is different than other cantrips in that instead of just having one attack get stronger as you progress through the levels, it's like fighters, basically. You just get more attacks. And because the Eldritch Blast Charisma modifier, it's like, oh, well, I can deal plus 3, 4, 5, depending on your modifier, to each time I hit something. That really adds up. But the really awesome thing here is when you have the Quicken Spell or Twin Spell meta magic that you could, it's almost like an action surge at this point for your Eldritch Blast. Like, not only do you have all of these sorcerer spells that you can do, and I mean, yeah, you could also have the Warlock spells, but it's like if you're going to twin it, you can attack 2 targets every turn for 1 sorcery point. It's like action surge. Or you could quicken it and hit the same target twice for 2 sorcery points. It gets nasty. Add in Hex just for fun, just like Josh was talking about with Hunter's Mark for the Vengeance Paladin and Assassin Rogue. And you get short rest spell slots. You could convert those to more sorcery points if you want to do, and it just gets nasty. You'll be a little behind as far as your, like, I guess your sorcerer spell level, but it's worth mentioning. But I think if you just adjust your thinking to be like, I'm just going to be a ranged magic damage dealer, I feel like a lot of multiclassing is all about the way you view how effective your character is and how your character is going to interact with combat. And if you can just adjust that, I feel like that's going to make it a lot more satisfying of a playthrough. If you're going to have trouble doing that, maybe multiclassing isn't for you. But
it's an interesting thought, actually, with like specifically with the spellcaster, right? Because if you multiclass, you're never going to be that maximum like the arch wizard, right? You're never going to be Dumbledore. If you think of it like, okay, I'm not, or at least for a very long time, like I'm not going to be able to do like Wish or something like that, but I am the best. Like I'm a mortar. I am just firing rockets and explosions from far away, and like that's still pretty freaking cool. It's just a different goal that you need to have.
Yes,
Like,
you just have to. It's just like exactly. It's what is my goal for how I interact in combat. And if you just want to just beat the ever living snot out of someone with Eldritch Blast, well, this will really do that for you. One thing that might be worth noting is that Tasha's Cauldron of Everything does have the Eldritch Adept feat, which I could see an argument to allow someone to simply accomplish this by taking feats. However, like Magic Initiate, get your Eldritch Blast, and then this to get your Agonizing Blast. However, the Eldritch Adept feat does specifically say any of the invocations that has a prerequisite does require you to actually be a Warlock. So I think because of how nasty this could be, and then you wouldn't actually have to sacrifice what Josh and I just talked about, as a DM, I would be like, listen, you might, I think I'm just going to make you take the Warlock levels, but talk to them. You never know. Maybe they'll let you do it. Maybe there'll be sage advice to remove that. I don't know. That's a scary build.
another combination that I love would be the Ranger Rogue. I know Rogue again, but come on, Ranger Rogue. So really, the thing with Rogue that you want is you want to add dice to your pool, so that when you crit, or even if you don't crit, if you sneak attack, you're just rolling massive amounts of damage. So I like starting off as a ranger. You get that proficiency in all martial weapons, so you get longbow, which is a D8 instead of a D6 for short bow, which you would typically get as a rogue. You get your extra attack. You take hunter, get Colossus Slayer, and of course, again, you get Hunter's Mark. So you do your Hunter's Mark, and boom, you crit. Now I'm rolling double D8s for my bow, double D8s for Colossus Slayer, double D6 for Hunter's Mark, plus sneak attack. And then I'm going to attack again because I am a ranger and I have extra attack.
Yeah, even if you went crossbow on this and you had crossbow expert, you could get a bonus action attack too. Add sharpshooter in that mix, and you are just oh my gosh, that's just don't mess with that character. You'll never see it coming. 600 feet away. My gosh, that is one build that I think is amazing, because a lot of classes, and I feel this way about the Barbarian. If you look at one class after a certain point that you're not satisfied and you feel like you could better achieve your goal by multiclassing, like if your goal here is to just be a ranged martial damage dealer, this is really going to scratch that itch for you.
Yeah, and take a level 1 fighter. And you'll be able to pick up another fighting style, so archery and protection, or whatever you want. Take 2 levels, you get action surge. Not bad.
No, this is really nice. One thing that I kind of alluded to earlier in the video is adding 3 levels of Artificer to get your Eldritch Cannon to a fighter, a barbarian, a paladin, somebody on the front line, because that Eldritch Cannon does so much with the bonus action. You want to have a flamethrower and be the Mandalorian, and you're just toasting people with your bonus action after your extra attacks on the front line. Great. You want to attack somebody with there, knock them down, then shoot them with your Force Ballista. Well, okay, there you go. Or you could just get temporary HP every single turn as a bonus action. And plus you get all the toys that the Artificer can do with the infusions and all sorts of things. You want to have a bag of holding, you take a regular bag, boom, it's a bag of holding. Like, this is this one to me, I feel like, is really fun because it really exploits something that would really make a frontline tank even nastier. Because if you have a decent intelligence score, maybe if you wanted to be able to have kind of both Battlemaster maneuvers and sort of have some magic like an Eldritch Knight, this might really scratch that itch for you really well. Plus they get healing spells. Who doesn't want healing on the front line?
Back on like what you were saying early on with like what you look for when multiclassing, you mentioned like ability scores that match, right? Like say charisma. So maybe you make a paladin, a sorcerer, mix those two together. Boom. Charisma's your casting modifier for it. So that's going to be high. And you can do some crazy things like using Quicken Spell, and then you just get to still take your regular attack and an extra attack on top of that. And your smites.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. If you, I guess you want to have extra attacks, so you're going to be at least 5 levels in Paladin here. But if you can quicken a hold person and paralyze something, or hold monster if you're up at that height, and sorcerer spells, now every time if you're within 5 feet, it's crit. Like you just, it's like, oh, I'm a paladin, so I'll burn all my smites as well. Like you are going to be, you're just a monster at that point. And if you want to make it thematic, then, go Divine Soul Sorcerer. Why not? You might not have as much hit points, but you'll be very strong in other ways. One of the most classic ones, and easily has some great synergy with each other, is the Barbarian and Fighter. I think, Rage right away at level 1 for Barbarians, I mean, that's probably the quickest, most on the nose, like immediately rewarding dip you could make. If you're going to be on the front lines, you just take a level in Barbarian, you'll be very happy. Like we said with Fighter all this time, fighting style, second wind, action surge. I think the bulk of this would probably be Fighter, but I might actually argue you might want to start in Barbarian because you're not going to need the heavy armor, because you can't do that with Raging. So that might be where I would go with that. Do you want to push for brutal criticals as a Barbarian? So maybe you're going to focus on Barbarian. So you actually, dare I say it, go Champion Fighter for reckless attack and the increased critical threat range. So advantage to get a 19 or a 20. You even go half orc and get an even more damage dice on that. That gets nasty.
That would get really nasty. As far as synergy is concerned, you're probably right because of that brutal critical, but I would say, like, if you're a Barbarian Fighter, a Battlemaster Fighter is a muscle wizard, right? And you're not really able to do a lot of casting while you're raging, but you could do all your muscle wizard spells.
Absolutely. You want to push someone away. You want to just make them hit something and make them afraid so they can't come near your enemies. Well, give yourself advantage to make sure it works. Like, there you go. And that's the one nice thing, right? Because usually a fighter or barbarian's probably going to go with something like Great Weapon Master. And that -5 can hurt, but if you give yourself advantage without the need of any help anywhere else, that's a really nice thing.
Plus precision attack.
Yeah, you have to even have that in your back pocket too. Oh my god. And one thing I'd like to say here, because for a build like this, conventional wisdom always would say, wait till level 6 to do this because you want to make sure you get extra attack. This build, it could sound crazy, but if you're like a human variant, or now with the new lineage rules, I forget exactly what it's called, but that Tasha's lets you customize and you could start the game with a feat. You want to grab something like Polearm Master, you can weaponize that bonus action. Well, starting off with Barbarian right away is great because now you can hit somebody with the second weapon with your bonus action, get that rage damage, and if you have dual wielding or two weapon fighting, you're going to add your strength modifier plus your rage damage to that. So at level 2, this build kind of comes online and you're making 2 attacks every turn anyways. Sure, you actually get the extra attack at level 6, but you've been doing that since level 2 for the most part. And if you wanted to switch to something different later on, the optional rules in Tasha's lets you retrain your fighting style if you decide you want to go Great Weapon later on. This is a nasty build, because right away too, if you have an 18 in your strength, that's +4 damage, rage damage +2. You could be hit something with a dagger and the minimum damage is 7. At that level, that's nasty.
Yeah, that's pretty nasty.
Enjoy the journey. That's what multiclassing, when you're trying to plan this stuff out, gotta enjoy your journey.
Yeah, no, it's all about deciding what you want, checking the rules and trying to see what the best way to go about that is, and then just making it happen. And slowly, as some things get added to your toolkit. You're like, all right, this is nice. Oh, this is a little bit cooler. And then suddenly you have everything you were looking for, and it's like, this is it. This is my build.
Yeah. And there are obviously some other ones that we could talk about. I mean, Paladin Warlock is a really, really common and awesome build if you really could pimp that out with going Hexblade. Barbarian Paladin, smiting and raging. Barbarian Druid being raged while in wild shape beast form. I mean, there's some really nasty stuff in there. And if you've got some fun stories to tell us, we really would love to hear them in the comment section, because multiclassing creates some really amazing moments that are kind of unforgettable.
Your fighter ranger, get 3 attacks. If you're still using Hunter's Mark at that level, then you're getting to add Hunter's Mark to all 3 of those attacks. It's not bad. Plus an action surge. It's not bad. Not bad.
Yeah.
And if you care about skill proficiencies, don't sleep on the Bard Rogue. You just want to be proficient in every skill. Expertise in every skill.
You go Lore Bard. Oh my gosh. And if you're a half elf, you're getting almost proficiency in almost every skill right there. But yeah, tell us about some fun stuff that you've done in the past. We'd love to hear about them.
Yeah, I want to hear your craziest ideas possible. Craziest combinations in the comments below.
Talking to you, Alco, I know you talked about some monk druid combo. I think, if I remember, something you said there was fun.
I hear monk is a really good combo.
Yes. That's a great one. It would actually be really cool if you could multi-class subclasses.
It would be incredible.
Like if you just put them all into one thing and you could just pick and choose which ones you win as you progressed. Oh man. Mm-hmm. Pinto, pinto.
Pinto.
Pinto, pinto.
Pinto.
Yeah, I really like the Barbarian Fighter. That's a good one. We should talk about that.
Yeah.
Send the invitation. Shower your baby. Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh, Barbarian Druid. Get some nasty stuff.